great history is winding down in this region and in this town. The smoke is cleared and silence falls as the buildings tumble down, and as the rivers wash the banks of time, set our sons and daughters free. As these children roam, let them not forget, this land is home to me.
Priests, religious, lay people came to Appalachia, and one of the things that they noticed when they were close to the people was the need for the leaders of the church to speak about the conditions here in Appalachia, to speak a prophetic word about the people's struggles and their hopes for the future. A number of them among the Catholics got together and asked the bishops for a pastoral letter on what was going on here. And so they organized and they conducted listening sessions and generated the text for what is now a pastoral letter called This Land is Home to Me, which came out in 1975 and was signed on by all the bishops of Appalachia.
Well, one of the first things with the first pastoral, it certainly was a pastoral that came from the people and the people's voices. And again, it had listening sessions all over central Appalachia.
And then that inspired 20 years later another updated document called At Home in the Web of Life, 1995, which focused a little more on the possibility of creating sustainable communities here in Appalachia. And so the People's Pastoral really flows from that tradition of theologizing by really highlighting the authority of the people's voices themselves.
Well, as a northerner who, by the grace of God, was given the great gift to be bishop in Appalachia and Appalachian region, they have been my primary education about the region, and then really delighted to see the People's Pastoral build on those two previous ones. And I think they coincide beautifully with Laudato Si, which gives us the direction of Pope Francis and a real concern for the environment in which we live.
One of the gifts of the church in Appalachia was that early on the people called for pastoral statements but from below, that the insights were really from the people's stories themselves, and then teaching is generated from there. The People's Pastoral takes it a step further, and it basically says that the people themselves have authority. One of the phrases that we use in the document is the magisterium of the poor.
It's the magisterium of the poor, and they were the voice, and that was the approbation. That was what we needed to hear.
Well, I think throughout Scripture we find a real preferential option for the poor. We see it in Jesus' direction, and we see that the poor are the ones who really recognize their dependence on God, and so they have so much to teach us about God. And we live at a time in the church now with Pope Francis, who's really calling our attention to the need to be attentive to the voice of the poor. It's a voice that the world tries to squelch very often or completely ignore.
In a lot of our churches we sing a song pretty regularly, "The Lord hears the cry of the poor." We as Christians believe in a God of the poor. We believe in a God of mercy who the first thing God does is listen to the voice of God's people, particularly those who are oppressed in some way, the marginalized, those on the margins of life in one way or another. And God responds in compassion, listens, hears that voice, and fulfills the promise of change. And we can see that in concrete ways if we open our eyes to it.
January 2013 is when there was a large chemical spill of a chemical called MCEHM, and no one was aware of what the health impacts would be of MCEHM. No one knew that it was being stored just upriver from the only water intake for the West Virginia American water system that covers not just Charleston, West Virginia, but 9 surrounding counties and 300,000 people.
He told me to come out and take some water samples. He was getting the smell coming out of his faucet. When he would take a shower, if he got any water in his face at all, his eyes would start getting red and irritated and almost crusting shut. and make terrible headaches when you turn the water on, just getting in the shower. The heat of the shower would bring the fumes up into you and terrible headaches.
It wasn't just a do not drink your water. We were told not to use our water at all, not to shower in it, not to use it for anything other than sanitation. So you could flush your commode, but you couldn't even brush your teeth. You couldn't do anything with the water.
And so I contacted the governor's office and asked them why wasn't there water dispense places down in Institute, because we have a large community of poor people. Basically where they had the water was predominantly white neighborhoods.
Chemical that was spilled was used in the coal industry to process coal, and that chemical is used in the coal fields of the rural areas every day. It still is used every day. And there had been spills of smaller nature in those coal fields over the years, but no one paid much attention to it until it hits Charleston, West Virginia. And then it became national news.
Meanwhile, significant new developments this morning in a chemical spill that has forced 300,000 people to stop drinking water out of the taps in their homes.
Tonight, truckloads of water are being rushed to the capital of West Virginia for about 300,000 people. 9 counties are affected by a chemical spill from an industrial plant.
More than 700 people in the Charleston area have called poison control centers, complaining of nausea, vomiting, headaches, and rashes. 70 people went to local hospitals.
The chemical that spilled into the Elk River leaked from a hole in a storage tank owned by Freedom Industries, which produces chemicals for coal and steel production.
The crisis began when a toxic chemical used to process coal leaked out of a 48,000-gallon storage tank. The chemical overflowed into the Elk River just north of a water treatment plant that provides drinking water for the region.
West Virginia provided water for our neighborhood on the last day they were giving it out, and it was cold. And they were nasty giving out the water.
I will tell you that there were jobs and businesses in Charleston, West Virginia that shut down and never came back because of that chemical spill.
Basically, we're a small black community, and they care more about the jobs than they care about people's health around here. And we have a high cancer rate in the town, high heart failure rate in the town. We have every conceivable type of ailment. We have high levels of it. Most of those people are now dead.
There is an economic cost to a bad environment. There are economic costs to pollution.
As long as that company is bringing jobs in the state of West Virginia, they don't care how much they kill the workers.
We don't believe a great deal of material left the facility, and at this time we're not in a position to give you a number in terms of how much volume left. We simply don't know yet.
That there's been a long-standing lack of enforcement of any environmental policies in this state for forever.
So what's it doing to us? Nobody wants to look at that. And they just don't care. And it's sad, because we're a human race. If you listen to them, you will learn a lot, a heck of a lot. And so that's what the most important thing is. You come down, you address the people respectfully, and they will give you the world. That's just West Virginians.
What has occurred is people have come in here with sort of this missionary approach. You are so poor, you are so downtrodden, you just don't know what you can do, and we're going to come tell you what to do. And if people come in here with that attitude, they're going to be asked to leave.
Somebody who comes from the outside into Appalachia, you have to set aside all your preconceived ideas. You have to really be open to what you experience from the people themselves and what you hear from the people themselves, and not come so much to do anything for somebody, but to enter into relationship with somebody. And I think that will be the most enriching thing you can do in the experience.
I think people both inside and outside of Appalachia, we can look at the region and think about issues. We think about mining, we think about poverty. But the People's Pastoral, I think, is a way to humanize a lot of the issues in the region, and to celebrate the richness of the region and the people themselves. So hearing directly people's experience, their stories as people first.
Never stop listening. Never stop listening. And because you will change and you will learn if you listen.
Paradise fell and the tenements grew, swept my soul across the avenue. Paradise fell and the tenements grew, the tenements grew. Paradise fell and the tenements grew, the tenements grew.